In this video, we'll be talking about how we went from this type of simulation to this type of simulation in the last 30 years. In the beginning of the 1990s, I was studying at École Polytechnique de Montréal using a computer similar to this, and I took a course called Introduction to Systems Simulation with teacher Laurent Villeneuve, and we saw a bunch of simulations, languages, and softwares. The most interesting to me was this SimFactory 2.5, which had this wonderful visual interface. Don't laugh, it was the only one that had a visual interface. The others were all text-based simulation. This one, at least you could see things moving, even if it was just little red dots moving from one station to the other, but you could see things moving, and I was instantly fascinated by that. I have another view here, copied from an old presentation. You can see that you had your little bitmap icons like grinders, washer, polishing, the little shipping guy there. At the top, you have your menus, or you could define the layout, the process. So, for example, grinder A, you could define its efficiency, you could define some other parameters. I don't remember it all. I just found these on the internet, and since the internet wasn't widely available at the time, at least not the visual internet we're used to, there's not much you can find on the internet about this. And this was the wonderful reports you would get from your printer, all text-based. Actually, this is nothing new. Since the beginning of simulation, results were always text-based. And you might think what I just showed you is very archaic and very old, but 30 years before that, simulation languages started with something called SimScript, and this is how you would write a program. So there was nothing visual at the time. You would input your commands, you'd run it, and then you'd get your reports like this after a certain amount of time, which was much longer than today's computers were very slow. So it didn't evolve that much visually, at least in the first 30 years. But then it got faster and faster, kind of like what we saw for video games. So 30 years later, or actually 60 years later than SimScript, 30 years later than SimFactory, this is FlexSim today. And it's normal. Technology these days allows us to do that. So the goal here is not to talk about FlexSim, but about FlexSim's ancestors. So after university, I started to work at Canada Post for a little while. Then at General Motors, the Camaro Firebird factory near Montreal, which is now a shopping mall. Then at Billicopter Textron, which is still there. And then at Le Groupe Créatech, which is a consulting firm in Montreal. And this is where I found my true calling. I already knew I wanted to work on my own and be a consultant, but these years at this place really solidified that. Plus, I started to work for them with a simulation software, which happens to be FlexSim's ancestor. And so later on, when I started on my own business, I kept working with that ancestor and then with FlexSim. And that 1995 software was called Taylor 2. But in order to show it to you, I had to buy an old Pentium compact laptop. And I found my old Taylor 2 simulation demo CD in order to install the software and show you the models. So I'll show you a few of the demo models. So first I loaded up a chocolate factory model, which is typical of what you'd expect from the 90s, with very little animation, but recognizable bitmaps for the products and some equipment. Next, we have a simple 3D model, and you can see at the beginning how long it takes for the video card to generate the 3D animation, which is very slow. You don't really see the boxes moving. You more like to see them disappear and reappear a little bit further. Same here for the carriers that we see under. At first it looks impressively 3D for the time, but it works well for the static, but not for the dynamic things that are moving. Like everything that moves very sluggishly or jumps from one place to the other, which is probably amplified by the low power of the compact computer that I had. In this other model, we have a very interesting AGV where, as you can see, we can enter some parameters, number of AGVs, speed, and so we could configure questions like this to the user in Taylor 2 at the time. And then eventually we'll get some nice animation. We can call this animation. It looks like the the old video games where we see little AGVs moving to their locations, picking up stuff, and some are empty, some carry a little box. So this is one of the nicer one I've seen so far. And again, it's not trying to be 3D too much. It might actually have been a real model. And I remember that all the models I personally did at the time were this type of 2D animation. The 3D was mostly for show and tell, but the 2D was real project. So this is, now we have a 3D model again. This probably ran a lot better on a really powerful Pentium of the time, but the laptop that I bought on Kijiji doesn't do it well, as we had the same problem we had earlier where the boxes don't really flow. Another one here, I don't think the operators are animated. It's just the boxes, but actually in this one, for some reason, the boxes flow much better than in the other ones. Sorry about the movement, by the way. I'm filming this with my phone because I couldn't figure out a way to record the screen directly from that old laptop. So here we have an insurance company. So treatment of claims, very interesting business process redesign model. Call center simulation. So we have the calls coming on the left, service queue, and we have the operators on the right taking the calls. I actually recognize some of the names as being current Flexim employees or past Flexim employees, current and past actually. So that's an interesting simple model, again with simple bitmaps. We even see countries, flags. Cookie factory here, we see a little lift truck on the left going up and down. See little icons for workers and machines, labeling, closed box, empty boxes. And we see boxes going by. So it's actually, we see even on the right open boxes and then on the left closed boxes. So this was pretty good. We had to be imaginative to create those kinds of icons. So this one here is, it's funny if you look at the products going by, it's car company logos. So we have GMC, Chevrolet logos going to work centers. Not sure exactly what the model is, but here we have a pizza restaurant where we have the number of angry customers on the right, the earnings per hour. Repair crew in a job shop. So we see all the machines on the right, the repair crews on the left, and breakdowns appear in red, and then the employee has to go fix them. And so how many employees do we need depending on the rates of breakdowns and things like that. So here we have something that looks like a paint carousel or maybe some other type of process, but looks like paint carousel. Here we have a really big warehouse with the AGVs, ASRS. So I'm surprised again we were able to do that kind of simulation at the time. So last thing is, let's quickly see how we were building, where we start to build a model. We start with the layout. So we go into the layout editor and then drag and drop some items like a machine, a transport, a buffer, etc., conveyor, and these were very schematic in shape when we drag them, and then we connect them together, and then you exit the layout editor, go back to the modeling or the main menu, I would say, and you have your objects with default icons, and you can run the simulation. And we're back to Flexim in 2022. So let me know in the comments below if you like that kind of video, and if you'd like other videos of this, I would say, historical type videos, or any other kind of video. Well, what would you like to see related to Flexim or not, or simulation in general? So thank you.